nationwide search for her.
The 20-year-old Lauren Spear, a sophomore from New York, vanished off the streets of Bloomington.
We're getting close. I think we're going to solve this.
Captured on the spy pen is a conversation between Suzanne Morphew and somebody named Jeff.
Today, we are going to be investigating a college student that's still missing after a bizarre night out with friends, a young woman who went for a jog but was chased by a stalker and never returned home, and a beautiful mother who seemed to have everything, only to disappear without a single trace, leaving her husband looking extremely guilty.
Party night in a college town.
There's just so many people around and out at all hours. There was always something going on.
At Kilroy's Bar in Bloomington, Indiana, students from Indiana University pack the place and then head home in the early morning hours.
You feel very close-knit there. There was never like a question of me being unsafe.
Yet it was shortly after leaving Kilroy's, 5 years ago this month, that 20-year-old Lauren Spear, a sophomore from New York, vanished off the streets of Bloomington and has not been seen since.
I really just would like to hear this is where you can find your daughter. It's the not knowing what happened to her, where she might be, or, it's unbearable.
Imagine your child traveling miles away to attend college, where you believe that she will be safe, only to later discover that the worst has happened. That was the case for the Spire family. Lauren was your normal kid, living a normal life.
She was a great kid, high energy, very caring.
Very caring.
Loving.
She really had a zest for life.
Lauren lived a very normal, happy childhood. It involved ballet as a young girl. Her parents, Robert and Charlene, worked hard to give their daughter everything, and Lauren appreciated it, as is evident in this video taken at her bat mitzvah ceremony.
Mom and Dad, I just want to say thank you. I'm having an amazing night, and I love you too so much.
Robert and Charlene were incredibly proud, happy parents, but all it took was one phone call to change their life forever. It happened on the evening of June 3rd, 2011. The evening had started out perfectly normal.
We were eating dinner and the phone rang. I went to answer the phone and Robbie said, "Char, Lauren's missing." So it's really heart-stopping,
What followed would become one of the most famous missing person cases in the United States. Everyone across the nation was talking about what could have happened to Lauren. This is the last picture of her alive. Lauren's parents traveled to Indiana University to help lead the search for their daughter. They implored the public for help.
My first thing is to say to the person that has Lauren or that has harmed Lauren, shame on you. Shame on you.
Hundreds of volunteers turned out to help find Lauren. They checked alleyways and fields, they checked dumpsters and creeks, they broke into groups in order to cover more area, and traveled to rural areas around the university. Even people who didn't know Lauren came out to help.
I came out today just to help look for Lauren, and it's just a lot of massive territory.
And that it was. There were incredibly vast forests to search through. Lauren could be anywhere. Despite all odds, her parents were still holding on to hope that their daughter would be found alive.
So you're in this massive area and you're driving, here's another pull-off, let's pull off. And then you get out of the car and then you go walking through these woods and you're calling Lauren's name and you're hoping you're gonna find her laying in the woods somewhere, and it's tough.
As the days passed and the outlook seemed to get even more grim, Robert and Charlene took to the news to assure everyone that they weren't going to give up.
Let me be firm in that we're here, still committed to finding her. It's our worst nightmare.
News of the case was spreading fast, and it was getting a lot of attention, even by celebrities like Kim Kardashian and Ryan Seacrest, who tweeted out in support of the family. As places to look for Lauren were beginning to run out, police made the decision to check a local landfill for any sign of her. Can you imagine searching through garbage in hopes of finding a piece of your missing loved one? That's what Lauren's parents were forced to do. Her father remembered that day through tears.
Probably the hardest thing that we had to do in the searches was to go to that landfill.
Yeah.
stand there, watch them.
Every painstaking day for Lauren's parents was filled with constant worry and desperation. They blamed themselves for the fact that she hadn't been found yet.
I start my every day hoping that today is the day. I go to sleep every night knowing that I have failed and that I haven't. I'm sorry. I haven't done enough.
Lauren's friends were suffering as well.
After June 3rd, it really started to sink in that this was happening.
Lauren's parents were certain that there were people out there that knew what happened to their daughter, but that they were too afraid of getting in trouble themselves to come forward. So they made a deal with the police that tips could be submitted anonymously.
You can provide anonymously is to be received through either the Bloomington Police Department or through the America's Most Wanted tip line. There will be no taping, so you can feel free to give us anything that you know, and if it leads to us finding Lauren, you'll get the reward.
Slowly, the weeks turned into months, and the months turned into years. Still, no Lauren.
This Sunday marks the one-year anniversary of the disappearance of IU student Lauren Spear.
So many years have now passed that the missing posters of Lauren are now hard to come by at her old university, and many students don't even know who she is.
There's not really much talk of it anymore, no.
It's old news. I think we should let it go and move on.
But Lauren's parents aren't simply going to move on, and neither are the FBI. The FBI are still determined that they can find out what happened to Lauren.
We're getting close. I think we're going to solve this.
Over the years, Lauren's parents have hired countless detectives and utilized every resource possible to try to figure out what happened that fateful night back in June of 2011. They believe that what happened to Lauren is connected to 4 people, all of whom were in Lauren's inner circle. They include Jesse Wolf, Jason Rosenbaum, Corey Hammersley, and Corey Rossman.
When something happens to someone, it's usually from their own circle.
People also found a white truck that was in the area where Lauren went missing on the night she went missing. The white truck happened to belong to an ex-convict. It's possible that he did something to Lauren.
Regarding the disappearance of Lauren Spear, do you intend to answer all the questions truthfully?
Yes.
But that's not all. Police also got new leads about Lauren's friends and what they were all doing on the night she disappeared. Many people believe that on the night Lauren died, she was taking some serious along with drinking alcohol, and that she overdosed after having a bad reaction to the drugs.
She OD'd. They got scared and drove her down to the Ohio River and disposed of her body.
But this is just one of multiple theories that the police are exploring. Basically, what happened to Lauren occurred within a very short distance, just 1 block. Life has continued on for those at Indiana University, a life filled with football, games, class, and parties. To many that attend there, they feel safe at their school.
It's hard not to get caught up in the energy and everything there. It really is like happy. I feel like
part of the community. And
exactly.
On moving day every year, parents drop off their children believing that they are leaving them in a place that will be safe, a place where they'll be able to get a good education and start the next stage of their lives. This is how Robert and Charlene felt all those years ago when they dropped their precious daughter off at school.
I didn't have any qualms about saying goodbye.
Did you have any sense at all that there could be danger there?
No.
No.
No, not at all.
In looking at the pictures of Lauren at school, she seemed to be a very happy student who fit right in and had plenty of friends. She was known to be very bubbly and excited to be studying for a career in fashion, which was her dream. But when it comes to college towns, nowhere is completely safe, just as was the case with Bloomington. It would later be determined that the drug scene was big in Bloomington. One former student who is now in recovery discussed the type of environment that caused him to fall into his addiction.
It was just a whole bunch of college kids that had money and could afford to do the things that they were doing.
Lauren's parents must have known that she would go to parties, but they couldn't have known the extent of what she was involved with.
Was it distressing to hear that there was this party scene and she was part of it?
I don't think I realized what degree, and it was a little bit of a shock.
After Lauren went missing, police would search her room and did find a small amount of illegal drugs. So they knew that parents did play some sort of role in what happened to her. It's known that on the night she disappeared, Lauren had been partying.
I think she didn't make wise choices that night, but she didn't make herself disappear.
On that night, she had spent some time with her friend, Corey Rossman. He would later tell a friend about what he claims happened.
He's like, well, me and Lauren were hanging out, just partying, pre-gaming before we went to Kilroy's watching the game.
Lauren and Corey made it to Kilroy's bar. They arrived there at 2 in the morning. They spent only about 30 minutes at the bar, but it was clear to everyone that she was heavily intoxicated. She left her shoes and phone at the bar. This shows just how not in her right state of mind she was at the time. Absent during that bar outing was Jesse, the man that Lauren had been dating since she was in high school.
Any rational boyfriend is going to be concerned if you're out with other boys, particularly at 2 o'clock in the morning, potentially drunk in a bar.
So, could a motive in this case have been jealousy? It seems highly possible. After Lauren left Kilroy's bar, there is about a 2-hour window where investigators believe something happened to her. It's known that Lauren and Corey walked from Kilroy's bar to her apartment, which was just about a block away.
They're going to her room up on the 5th floor of this building, having trouble walking, stumbling.
They step out of the elevator and come face to face with 4 other Indiana University students. They take issue with the way that Corey is handling Lauren. A scuffle occurs and one of the men punches Corey. Then Corey and Lauren left the scene quickly. Instead of going to Lauren's room, the pair leave the complex and head down a deserted alley. Lauren was walking barefoot as she stumbled several times. Eventually, Corey grows frustrated and ends up throwing her over his shoulder and carrying her. He takes her back to his own apartment.
She was not cared for in a way that I would want my son to care for another. And that's what kind of gets me, because the circumstances, I think, could have been a lot different had Lauren been escorted back to her apartment.
But that's not what happened. At 3:30 a.m., the pair arrive at Corey's apartment. We know that this happened because Corey's roommate had been home at the time. The roommate told the police that Corey threw up on the steps leading up to the apartment and then went to bed. Not knowing what to do with Lauren, who is heavily under the influence, the roommate decides to take her to a different apartment a short distance away. This apartment belonged to Jason Rosenbaum.
Jay sees what bad shape Lauren is in and said, Lauren, lay down on the couch, go to sleep, go home in the morning. And she won't do it. She says, I want to keep going, I want to go. Jay walks her to the door, and he sees her walk up 11th Street. He's the last person we are aware of that sees her alive.
The 3 men who last saw Lauren alive are identified as persons of interest, and they all hired lawyers very quickly. But what about Lauren's boyfriend? Was he concerned that his girlfriend was missing without a trace?
He helped with the searches on Saturday and Sunday. But then he left. His parents came to Bloomington and took him away.
What did you make of that?
I thought it was odd.
According to Jesse's friends, he had an alibi from the night Lauren went missing. He had been supposedly at home watching the NBA Finals that night and went to bed at around 2:30. But despite his supposed innocence, he refused to be interviewed by the news. He did, however, cooperate with the police and has continued to deny any claims that he had anything to do with what happened to Lauren. According to Lauren's friends, he wasn't the type of person who would have hurt her.
He's the most loving boyfriend you can ask for.
But was he really everything he seemed on the outside? And what about Corey Roseman? Had he really passed out when he said he did that night when Lauren went missing?
I don't know the last person with her. This is all I can say. I'm sorry, but I just hope that they find her as soon as possible, and I'm praying for her and her family.
Out of all of Lauren's friends, Corey Rossman was the least willing to cooperate with the investigation. This frustrated her parents. He also claimed that after he got punched by that guy at Lauren's apartment building, he lost all memory from the rest of the night. This was the story his lawyer was sticking with.
Punch or punches caused him a temporary memory loss.
But Lauren's parents didn't buy that story and instead think he is only trying to protect himself.
I think it's a case of self-preservation.
He knows more than he's saying.
I'm not sure of anything, but what I do know is that there's been a complete lack of cooperation. And he was the person that spent the most time with Lauren in the last hours of her being seen.
A year after Lauren's disappearance, her parents made an appearance on the Katie Couric Show to express their anger towards Lauren's friends and their belief that they, especially Corey, were stonewalling the search efforts.
Despite, their claims of doing whatever they could do, the fact of the matter is that they refused to meet with us, except for one of the boys. They refused to take a police polygraph.
At that time, Robert and Charlene were still holding on to hope that there was some sort of possibility that Lauren could still be alive somewhere out there. But Robert acknowledged that this possibility was slim.
And I understand that Lauren may no longer be with us. We ache for her. We want to bring her home.
A reporter confronted Corey on the streets in hopes of getting some sort of information out of him. It did not go well.
Corey, Brian Ross from ABC News 2020. Can we talk to you for just a second about Lauren Spear?
He refused to answer and walked a different way. Corey entered private property and informed the reporter that if he went any further, he would be sued. In 2021, it marked the 10-year mark since Lauren's disappearance. Has it become a cold case after all these years? Law enforcement claims this is not true.
Many times we are asked if Lauren's case is listed as a cold case. The answer to that is an unequivocal no.
Still, police are collecting tips and asking for any information possible in connection with this case.
It's a difficult time for the Bloomington community, and Bloomington police say that they have received more than 3,600 tips since that time, and they have executed 10 search warrants just in the past 3 years. Of course, Lauren's parents are devastated, and they have not given up their hope either.
After all this time, Lauren's parents no longer believe that their daughter is out there somewhere, still alive. However, they still cling on to the hope that one day they will find out what happened to her that tragic night. What do you believe happened to Lauren? Did she overdose on drugs, or could something more sinister have happened to her? Let us know in the comments.
You likely remember her name, Molly Tibbetts. Her disappearance in a small Midwestern town held the attention of the nation. As events unfolded, her case became a flashpoint for a national issue. At the height of summer on July 18, 2018, 20-year-old University of Iowa student Molly Tibbetts was dog-sitting alone at her boyfriend's brother's house. That evening, she went for a routine jog and never returned.
Molly had Snapchatted her boyfriend, Dalton Jack, not long before going for a run at around 10 p.m., but she never answered after that. Laura Calderwood, Molly's mother, recalls the heartbreaking moment she realized that her beautiful young daughter was missing.
First night she went missing, I was distraught, and I knew her phone was dead, but I sent her a text anyway saying, "I love you, we're looking for you, and we'll find you no matter what."
Molly had simply vanished. She was gone without a trace. She was missing from a place that most thought to be safe. Missing posters were put up all over town. People wore t-shirts and buttons with her face on them to try to draw further attention to the case. Everyone was looking for Molly, desperate to bring her home.
It's really tough. You never think, it's going to be in your small town. It's going to be someone on a missing poster.
The people of Brooklyn, Iowa, where Molly Tibbetts disappeared, came together to do anything they possibly could to bring her home.
I think that people just have seized on Molly's story because it's similar to their own children, and they know that if it wasn't Molly, it could have been one of their kids.
As soon as Molly's father learned of his daughter's disappearance, he immediately flew to Iowa to help with the search efforts. He did everything from passing out flyers to seeking help from the public through news conferences. The reward money posted for anyone that had any information regarding Molly's disappearance quickly got up to $400,000, with many people from the public contributing their own money. But despite this, weeks went by, and there were still no leads in the case. After over a month of searching, there was finally a break in the case.
This is breaking news on KCCI 8 News.
A first-degree murder charge was filed today in connection with the disappearance of Molly Tibbetts.
Molly's body had been found, concealed in a cornfield, not far away from the town she went missing from. She had been killed by multiple sharp force injuries. It was clear that what had happened to her was not an accident. In fact, they had a suspect in custody. He is 24-year-old Christian Bahina Rivera.
Investigators say they homed in on Rivera after someone provided them with a home surveillance video. The footage shows Molly jogging as well as a black Chevy Malibu investigators identified as Rivera's. Thinking he may have been one of the last people to see her alive, police went to speak with him.
During that interview, it was determined that Rivera saw Molly running and tried to approach her. During this point, he began running behind her, which understandably freaked her out. She told him that if he didn't leave her alone, she was going to call the police. She started running faster, and he began to chase her.
And he tells us that at some point in time he blacks out, and then he comes to near an intersection, which we believe he then placed Molly. Can't really speak about the motive. I can just tell you that he seemed to be drawn to her on that particular day.
It would later be determined that he was an illegal citizen. He had been living in the US for somewhere between 4 and 7 years. He had been working on a farm where he gave his employer a fake name. As soon as this news spread, many people were enraged and began turning Molly's death into a political issue. People believed that through better screening processes, Molly's death could have been prevented. Even the then president Donald Trump took to social media to comment upon the issue of illegal immigration and demand justice for Molly. Things got so intense that her father even wrote an article in the Des Moines Register begging people to stop.
Her father went so far as to publish a column in the Des Moines Register saying, "On behalf of my family and Molly's memory, I'm imploring you to stop." For most of the summer, the search for Molly brought this nation together like no other pursuit. There was a common national will that did transcend opinion, race, gender, and geography. Let's not lose sight of that miracle. Let's not lose sight of Molly.
Molly's parents said that their daughter was someone who cared about everyone and wanted to make everyone happy. She wouldn't have wanted to be associated with such divisiveness. Today, Molly's mother gets through by trying her best to live life the way her daughter would have wanted.
I just try and find the silver lining in it. I know that this is how she would want me to react. And when I am sad, I think about her seeing me, and I don't want that. I wanted people to remember that Molly lived life to its fullest, and she wants us all to go on living our best potential life.
In 2018, Rivera was charged with Molly's murder. He pleaded not guilty, and his bond was set at a whopping $5 million. This was partially due to the judge believing that he may try to flee the country. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the case had a frustrating number of delays, but that didn't stop justice from being served. Finally, in May of 2021, Rivera would be found guilty of Molly's murder. Just weeks later, he faced sentencing.
Based on the jury's guilty verdict entered on the 28th day of May 2021, it is the finding of this court that the defendant is guilty and is now ordered, adjudged, and decreed that the defendant is guilty of the crime of murder in the first degree.
The judge did not hold back when discussing the ways in which the defendant caused irreparable damage.
Mr. Bahino Rivera, you and you alone forever changed the lives of those who love Molly Tibbetts. And for that, you and you alone will receive the following sentence. It is the order and judgment of this court acting pursuant to the provisions of Section 902 of the Code of Iowa that the defendant be is hereby committed to the custody of Iowa Department of Corrections for a lifetime sentence with no eligibility for parole.
Do you believe justice was served for Molly? Let us know in the comments.
When something like this happens, when somebody goes missing, you want answers. But this case is incredibly unique. When you started to dig a little bit deeper, nothing is what it seems.
Suzanne Morphew went missing on Mother's Day in May of 2020, and from there on out, it became a nationwide search for her.
Suzanne Morphew, who was 49 years old at the time of her disappearance, seemed to have it all. She was from a small town called Alexandria, Indiana, and met her husband Barry when they were young. The pair had 2 daughters, Mallory and Macy, in what seemed to be the perfect life, complete with money and success. Upon Barry's choice, the family moved to Colorado, into an expensive home when the girls were in early adulthood. Barry ran a construction company while Suzanne was a retired retired teacher. From the outside looking in, it appeared to be nearly perfect. But the family was changed forever when Suzanne took off on her mountain bike and never returned home.
We see pictures of a beautiful woman, an active, physically fit woman, taking advantage of the mountains.
According to Barry, the night before Suzanne went missing had been a good night. They had a nice romantic evening, complete with a perfect dinner before going to bed. When he rose early to go to work the next morning, he said his wife was still asleep. Meanwhile, both Mallory and Macy were away on a camping trip. On the day Suzanne went missing, Barry was out of town, but he said he texted Suzanne to wish her a happy Mother's Day.
He received no reply. He had contact with his daughters, back and forth, can't get a hold of mother.
And then someone contacted a neighbor.
Right. The neighbor confirmed that Suzanne wasn't home, but that her car was there. After a brief search for her bike, the police are soon called. Police managed to find Suzanne's bike at the bottom of a ravine, but there's no sign of her. The first suspicion is that she may have been kidnapped. Barry made a plea to the public, asking for help in bringing his wife home.
Oh, Suzanne, if anyone is out there that can hear this, that has you, will do whatever it takes to bring you back.
He seems just like a concerned husband, desperate to bring his wife home, right? Maybe, or maybe not. Police search the family home, and they find something in the master bedroom that catches their eye. It was essentially a spy pen that Suzanne had been using to try to record conversations Barry was having to see if he was having an affair, but it didn't work as she had intended.
Captured on the spy pen is a conversation between Suzanne Morphew and somebody named Jeff. And it's clear that Jeff is her lover.
They did not know who Jeff was, but it put a new wrinkle into the case for sure.
Suzanne was having an affair that continued up until the day she disappeared. In fact, she had sent her lover a selfie of her sunbathing before that bike ride that she never returned home from. So this brings up several questions. Did she run off to go be with Jeff? Or could Barry have found out about the affair and decided to take revenge? For about the first year after Suzanne's disappearance, and even up until this day, law enforcement have been incredibly tight-lipped regarding their investigation. This prompted Suzanne's brother to come to Colorado to launch his own search.
I need to get busy and not disappoint a lot of people that showed up here to help.
There was no resource spared in the search for Suzanne, and countless people, not only from Colorado and Indiana, but across the nation, contributed to the search effort. With little communication from the police, it was hard for the public to know where they were in their investigation. But then, just about a year after Suzanne's arrest, there was a huge break in the case.
The Chaffee County Sheriff's Office arrested Suzanne Morphew's husband, Barry Morphew. He was taken into custody near his home in Poncha Springs. He was alone at the time of his arrest, and he was arrested without incident.
Barry was arrested and charged with his wife's murder, as well as tampering with evidence, despite the fact that no body had been found. What exactly the police had on Barry was not really ever discussed. Throughout everything, Mallory and Macy chose to stand by their father. They did not believe that he had anything to do with it. Still, it seemed as the case had finally been wrapped up and that justice was going to be served. Surprisingly, this was not to be. As of April 2022, a judge granted the prosecution's motion to dismiss the murder case, allowing Barry to walk free. With his daughters on either side of him, with big smiles on their faces, Barry walked out of prison looking happy and relieved. So is that it? Barry is officially no longer a suspect in this case? Not necessarily. One of the reasons that the prosecution may have filed to dismiss their initial charge is so that they can refile new ones in the future with more convincing evidence against Barry. As of October of 2022, Barry filed a request to receive a list of belongings that were seized by police as part of the investigation. This request was denied by the court. What's next for this family? Nobody knows. But as of October of 2022, Barry remains a free man, and the truth of what really happened to Suzanne Morphew remains a mystery. What do you think? Could Barry be the killer, or is he just a mourning husband? Let us know in the comments. May the bright lights associated with these ladies taken too soon, including Lauren Spurrier, Molly Tibbetts, and Suzanne Morphew, be remembered forever.